Hey, what's up guys? Alex here. If I look a little different, it's because I got a fancy new camera. Today, you and I are going to be learning about method chaining. Basically where you have a method and do a dot and you could do another method and string that on for very long as you want. But first, my course is really helping a lot of people understand Java. So if you want to understand Java, check out my full Java course down below. All right, let's get started with method chaining by making a new Java project together. We'll just call it blockchain because that's related to chaining, right? Then we'll make a class, and what's another chain pun? We can do chainmail. And then public static void main and finish. Here, I'm gonna zoom out a little bit here. Basically, method chaining looks like this, where you have an object, say we have a string object that is equal to Doug Dimmadome. I don't know if that's how you actually spell it. Since A is an object, you can access its variables and methods by typing a dot after it, and here are all the methods. We can do one like dot to lowercase and call it a day. Throw this in a print statement like that. So this is an example of one method being done on the A object. But since to lowercase returns a string, we can treat this whole part as a string, which means that we could do another method to this entire part. So if we do dot, we'll bring up those same string methods. We could do maybe char at 0, save and run. And now what this does is it uses multiple methods chained together to do exactly what we want in just one line. Let's do some more examples and actually just clean this up here. Say we have a string A that's equal to pi. Now let's have some fun here. Let's just tack on methods and see how far we can get. Do a dot to bring up what a string method can do. Say we want to concatenate another string, so like is good. Since this results in a string, since we hover over concat, it says it returns a string. We can treat this whole thing as a string and do more string methods, dot chars, to get a char sequence. We hover over it, it returns a char sequence or int stream object. Let's do a dot to see what that can do. That can do all these things I have no idea about. Maybe to array, and this returns an integer array. So we could put square brackets here even to access an element of that char array. Would return an integer, so we can say like int b equals the result of all this, and it works. So let's just print out this nonsense. B, let's see what happens. 112. This creates pi is good, converts it to a char stream, then converts it to an array, and then gets an element from the array. So this is just some funky practice. Let's do an actual good example of why this would be useful. Say we have a class student up here, like class student. I'll say the student has a name and a grade. Say the name will be a string and the grade will be an int. We'll have some methods like set name. This dot name equals name. If you're confused about the this keyword, I do have a video on the this keyword up on the screen now if you want to check that out. But basically what I'm doing here is I'm just creating a few methods for this student class so that we can see how we can chain methods together on objects. And grade should be an int. Boom. What am I thinking? This dot grade. Okay, let's create this student object now in the main method. Just like any other object, we make it like this. Student s equals new student. If I can spell. What we could do to set the student up with these setter methods is we could do s.setGrade 99 and then s.setName equal to Bob. Imagine if you had a lot of attributes for a student. This would take up a lot of lines. It would basically, in the end, or in the real world, it would look like this. You'd have a bunch of setups, which in some cases can be good and more readable, but some cases is not. Sometimes you just want to get a bunch of stuff done in one line and that be it. So that's where we can use method chaining instead. We could do s.setGrade However, when we hover over this, it says it's void. It doesn't return anything. So we can't put a dot, since a dot lets us access an object's methods and variables. We can't access anything here because it's not an object. It's returning nothing, it's void. So how do we get around this? Well, what we can do is make this return the student object. So instead of doing void here, we can do student, and then return this student object. I know this is getting really into like the object-oriented programming, but this will really help you practice throwing objects around and using them. And I'll explain everything line by line at the end. Basically, each one of these methods is setting the variable up top and then returning this object with that set variable. So now if we do s.setGrade and we hover over it, we see it returns a student object. Now we can do everything that that student object knows by doing a dot. It brings up things like grade, name, all the default object methods, and then our set methods, because it's up here, it knows everything. So that's why we can do set name as well to Bob. So this was just a little example. Nothing gets printed out, but let's just check that everything worked correctly by printing out s.name and s.grade. Boom, boom. We were able to set it up in just one line, which is just nice. It's more convenient and can make it more readable sometimes. Now let's go through all this method chaining line by line with this example we did. We have a public class called chainmail here. It's called chainmail because we came up with a little pun, and I love puns. It's got a main method. So when we click run, we run anything inside the main method's curly braces. The first line of code here is creating a student object. Since we have a capital student here, and there's a class that's equal to capital student, it knows how to make it. We don't have to import it ourselves. Next, we do s.setGrade. Since s is a student and we're in the same class, it knows all these variables and methods. setName is one of them with the string name. So we can do this and it works fine. Actually, we do setGrade here with an int grade. Since this results in a student object, we can do method chaining to do another method on that student object, which is why we can do setName. If this was void, if it didn't return anything, we couldn't do method chaining because a dot wouldn't know what to do. You can't do a method on nothing. So that's why we had to return this object that we're working with at the end of each method to do method chaining. I never really understood this concept until way later in college, probably until I graduated. Again, if you want to understand Java, you can check out my full Java course down below. And a lot of people have been learning Java really, really fast that way. So thank you. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next video.